Join me and come and learn how to knit the magic loop technique. It uses long circular needles and it's great fun. Let's get started. Right, so let's get started with magic loop. The reason we use magic loop is so that we can knit in a small circle. So if you've got to make a little bit of a toy or maybe a sleeve or a sock or something like that, you can use a magic loop using large sort of long circular needles rather than using double pointed needles where you need sort of 4 or 5 and you knit from needle to needle. Now some people prefer double pointed needles and that's wonderful, or you can try magic loop, which I personally think is easier, but you have as long a cable as you like, so the longer the better. It is easier if you've got a longer cable. I've got 16 stitches here that I've cast on. It doesn't matter how you cast on because it'd be down to the pattern that you're working on or anything like that. It doesn't really matter how you cast on unless it's a stretchy thing, but that's a whole other story. So first thing we do is we separate the stitches on the needle. We cut them in half, and I've got 16 stitches here, so I'm going to do 2, 4, 6, 8. Slide them so that they're onto the beginning of the cable, which is here. Then I'm going to put that needle down. I'm just going to bend the cable and pull it through so that the other 8 stitches slide nicely onto the other needle. So you've got this, and this is our setup for any kind of magic loop knitting. You've got half the stitches sitting on the back needle attached to the working yarn, and that's the one attached to the ball. The cable is over here on your left hand side and the tips of the needles are on the right hand side. The working yarn should always be on the back needle, and one of the reasons for that is that as you knit it will make sure that the purl bumps are inside and the stocking stitch, nice front knit stitch, is on the outside. Whenever you knit just a normal knit stitch in circular knitting, you produce stocking stitch or stockinette, and so always make sure that the working yarn is at the back. So to start knitting and to join this into a circle, what we do is we bring this back needle round to the front and we knit these stitches. So I'm just going to pop this working yarn out the way over there for a minute and then slide the back needle out, bring it round to the front, then grab hold of your working yarn, and then we're going to make sure that nothing's twisted, so nothing's twisted there. Start knitting, pull that right out, the first stitch. And when you knit the first stitch, you're also connecting these two together to make a circle, so try and keep that one quite nice and tight. And then knit the rest of the stitches on the needle, and you see how the cable has kind of got itself into a bit of a bow. That's right, that's perfectly fine, that's normal. So you knit the stitches and then you turn the work, put the working yarn at the back, pull this cable through, where's my tail there, and push the stitches onto the front needle. So we've got back to that same setup, working yarn at the back, and we're going to knit these stitches at the front. You pull the back needle around, grab the working yarn. Oh, it's a bit of a bendy old cable, that one. Knit the stitches on the front needle. There we go. Splitting the yarn, look at that. There we are. And then when you've knitted that row, we turn the work around, and it's best to just let the other needle drop. Pull the cable, push your needle through the front stitches. Sometimes that's a little bit tight when it's the first couple of rows. And there you are, back at the same situation. You've got stitches on the front, stitches on the back, working yarn sitting at the back there. So I'm going to pull the back needle round to the front, pick up the working yarn and knit the stitches off the front needle. Then I'm going to turn it. Make sure you keep the working yarn at the back. Push this cable or pull it through the stitches and push them onto the needle at the front. So you've got the same setup. Working yarn at the back, pull the back needle around to the front, pick up your working yarn and knit. And let's do this a few more times, nice and slowly, and then we can see, you can start to see this little tube appearing as we're knitting round in a circle. Pull that tail there. So I'm going to turn it, slide the working yarn, slide the cable through the stitches and onto the needle, like that. Working yarn at the back. Bring the back needle forward, pick up your working yarn and knit. Now you might find the first few rows, as with any project, always look a bit scrappy until you get going. You might find that where you've firstly joined up your circle, that it might have a little, you might end up with a little bit of a gap or something. Don't ever worry about that, because you have this tail and you can put a little stitch in if you need to. So we'll turn, take the working yarn at the back, pull this cable through, slide the stitches onto the front needle. There we go. Pull the back needle around, grab your working yarn and knit. Now this is a technique, like I was saying earlier, you definitely can use with socks. So I'm just going to do that again now. Let's twist it round. And as ever, same setup, working yarn at the back, pull the cable through, push the needle through the stitches. So you're ending up with the same situation every time. You're coming back to that. Pull the back needle forward and knit. But it's good for sleeves, especially if you're doing little sleeves like baby things or toys. Round it goes, working yarn at the back, pull the cable through. And you can see that this starts to get easier when you've got a few rows going, because you can kind of see it more clearly. Working yarn sitting at the back, pull the front needle through, grab the working yarn and then knit. So let's have a look at what we've got here. I pull my needle through so we can see it on the needles next to each other. This is the setup that you're looking for the whole way through. The needles are sitting next to each other, just like they were at the start. The cables are on the left. The working yarn attached to the ball is at the back, on the back needle. And the reason that that's important is that when you knitting in the round, it creates a lovely stocking stitch, and you get the knit stitches on one side and the purl stitches in the inside. And by having the working yarn at the back, that makes sure that it's that right way round, so that you can see the knitting coming through. And so you just keep going until you reach the point you need to reach and cast off or join it to something else, but just make sure you always have that set up. Half the stitches on each needle, you keep the working yarn at the back and you're always working on the front stitches. So that is how we do the magic loop. So that is how we knit the magic loop technique. It's so fantastic, you can use it for anything. Long cables are the way forward. So if you enjoyed that, leave me a comment and tell me all about it. Tell me what you're going to knit with Magic Loop, and don't forget to subscribe for more fantastic crafting videos. Happy knitting!